Hey Mark, this whole concept of due diligence sounds very complicated, very tedious and very arduous. And I don't know, I mean, do companies practicing due diligence, what is it and what should we be thinking about in regards to due diligence?
Yeah, due diligence is really about knowing who you're working with or planning to work with. So you might see a company that looks very attractive, but you really need to know what's behind the scenes, who's perhaps the beneficial owner. Does it have operations in other parts of the world which are very concerning, which could drag you into something that's very damaging and serious for you? What shape are they in, and so on. So due diligence is really just a check to see who they are.
Okay. And I mean, it's not just about companies, right? Also, there's due diligence on people also, right? To some extent.
That's right, yeah. And this is becoming increasingly common. Most big companies now do due diligence for any significant relationship. But what we're finding increasingly is that they're extending it to people. So the question that often is in people's minds is that person's qualification real? So we had a case with a company we were working with where they were actually promoting an engineer to a senior position. He'd worked for the company for a few years. And they actually just happened to check his degree certificate, which is a master's in engineering. And they found that the topics on the certificate didn't match an engineering degree. So they checked back with the university, and it turned out he didn't have a master's in engineering at all.
And this is a company an employee who's been in the company for a couple of years.
That's right.
Wow. So what did they do?
Well, actually, they terminated his contract because he wasn't a qualified engineer at all. Now, you imagine somebody like that working in construction, where he's designing buildings or infrastructure, and he doesn't actually know what he's doing. It can be very dangerous. So due diligence, if it's done right, will check, is that qualification real? Is the person who they say they are they the right people to work with us? When you get someone's references before you take them on, that's a form of due diligence. So it's a technical word that people do get a bit scared about, but just doing a simple Google search is a form of due diligence, which we all do.
But it is hard work, right? I mean, to some extent, it takes extra couple of steps, and sometimes people think it's unnecessary. What's the consequence of not doing it?
Yeah, well, I think there's a definite cost-benefit analysis that needs to be done. If it's just a supplier that's going to be servicing your aircon, you just need to check that they're a legitimate organisation.
And if the aircon works after the servicing.
True. That's more of a feedback loop.
Okay.
Slightly different. But
true.
So when we register for a new company, they want to see our Form 9, they want to see our directors and so on. This is due diligence. Are we a legitimate company with a bank account? If it's a bit more of a complex relationship, maybe you're entering a joint venture partnership, then it goes into more depth. Now that's where it becomes a lot more technical, and there are a lot of specialist firms out there. Ethics Base is a well-known one based in Singapore. They've got a very large database, and they'll run the company through that database, and they'll produce an extensive report. Might cost a few dollars, but if you've got millions of dollars in investment coming up, it's a worthwhile investment.
But the other complexity is that if there is a finding, right? I mean, let's say you do find something wrong, but this is an important partner, or something that you want to close fast and get things done. And what do you do? I mean, in the case that if there is issues, but on the flip side, there is a cost to not using them and going out there and searching for others. Yeah. How do you balance that?
Yeah, well, I would suggest that due diligence is done at an early stage. As soon as the relationship is looking serious, get it done then, because then you know whether actually you're onto a winner or whether you're going to hit a lot of problems later on. So getting it done early. A lot of big companies will produce a number of what's called red flags or orange flags. So the question then is the risk that red flag represents to your company worth the value or the benefit that the arrangement will bring in? Now, if you're going to do it with a large oil company, for example, then, going back to Shell, as we mentioned before, they've got operations in Nigeria, they've been caught out a few times, so it'll bring red flags up. But they're a very powerful premier client to work with. So you've got to look at what the red flag shows you. You may well want to discuss it with them and say, look, the due diligence brought this up. How can we be sure that the risks that this represents are properly mitigated? And then you would normally build something into the contractual arrangement, which meant that if something of that nature transpired, then you were free to leave the relationship.
I see.
But if it shows up that if the ultimate beneficiary owner is a Afghanistan warlord, which is one of the organisations we work with, proved to be, better pull out early before it gets too serious.
You actually work with the Afghanistan warlord?
Well, I'll tell you about that another day.
Okay, so that's going to be another story that we
Yeah.
need to zoom in on.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, in general, what are some best practices with regards to this whole space of due diligence?
I think the first is keep it simple. Match the need to what you need to do. If you need to use a professional service provider, then set that up. Use the reports at an early stage and then make a decision as to whether to continue, and then build the results into your contractual arrangements so that any risks that do materialize can be dealt with and get it right.
Okay, very good. A lot of work there, but
Not too
interesting.
hard, not too hard.
Yeah,
Just get it right.
But it's a process, right? It's really a process that you inbuild, so that everyone sort of kind of knows, whenever that we get into any relationship, check first.
Check first.
And that's it.
And actually, a Google search can be enough, and that can only take a couple of minutes, and it's free.
Yep. Very good.
Okay?
All right.
All right.
Good week ahead, man.
Yeah, okay. You too.